So in this brand new update, Autocannon has just added a new tank, and that is the Leopard 2A-RC. So in this video, guys, I'll actually be going over this vehicle's stats and how powerful it actually is in the modern meta. But before we start, I do have to say, it might even be better than the Abrams X, and there are a lot of different reasons for this. But anyway, before we begin, I'd like to quickly cover this vehicle's base stats. It's going to be having 45 speed and 1750 health. When you max it out, it's going to be having 58 speed, 2275 health, which, by the way, it's pretty much the same as the Abrams X's. But by the way, make sure to join the Discord server. There are currently a lot of giveaways going on. So this vehicle does actually have a lot of very much special features, and the first one about it is that it's going to be having a 140mm cannon, and this is by far going to be the first cannon behind the E100 and the mouse that will actually be able to one-shot the F-35 once it's actually moving. However, this isn't the only vehicle that this can one-tap, because this vehicle is a clear counter to the V-22 Osprey, also being able to one-tap it with its tank cannon, which is actually insane, to be honest. And those exact same results can also be replicated against the Mi-24 Superhind, so once again, another benefit of this tank. And now actually moving into its cannon damage against the Leopard, and this actually surprised me quite a lot, but this thing will be able to get the Leopard to around 24% after one shot, which is actually insane, because I know most tanks would not be able to do such insane damage. It really does make sense for the 140mm. However, with this, the cannon is also extremely strong against tanks, and specifically against the Abrams X, it will be able to take away exactly 45% away from it, which I say is definitely better than most of the tanks which we also have in the game. So now actually moving into this vehicle's autocannon, and it will be doing exactly 78 damage per hit, which is actually quite a lot to the F-35, and as you guys can see, due to the insane fire rate, it will be able to shred it in a few seconds. And now pretty similar results can also be replicated against the Superhind. However, the damage will be lowered to 65, but either way, the fire rate really is what drives this weapon up very much. And now in terms of this autocannon's ground capabilities against the Leopard, it will be able to pretty much shred it in a few seconds, just exactly the same as it was able to do to all the air vehicles, which once again is pretty insane. However, against the Abrams X really came to be one of the biggest surprises for me, because this autocannon will pretty much be comparable to the Modernas, and this does really feel like the Moderna is kind of being power cut with this update, but this thing, after shooting pretty much all of the ammunition, will be able to leave the Abrams X at 33%. And now lastly, moving into this vehicle's anti-tank guided missile, and this is the most interesting one for me, because it's what really gives this vehicle that extra bonus versatility, and it will actually be able to lock on through the walls, which is a very interesting fact about it, which it will basically function like the Abrams X's Javelin, so we'll be gaining a tactical advantage from it very easily. However, its damage against the F-35 will also be very similar to what the cannon was. It will be able to one-tap it without a problem, and the same thing can also be done against the Mi-24 Superhind. But what really came to be the biggest surprise here is that it will be able to leave the Leopard at 1%, and keep in mind that this thing is maxed out, so being able to almost one-tap it is insane results. However, as a nice counterbalance for this vehicle, the anti-tank guided missile will not be able to do too much damage against tanks, because it will only be able to do 35% against the Abrams X, which I think is a good choice from the devs. And now lastly, if we take a look how fast this thing will be able to destroy an Abrams X by using all of its weaponry, I will say the speed is definitely going to be pretty fast. However, I wouldn't say it's exactly game breaking to the point that I do believe it should get a nerf. Now lastly, this vehicle does have one last final feature, which of course is going to be the active protection system. So anyway, in conclusion, I believe this tank to be either better than the Abrams X or on par with it, by the simple reasons that the Moderna and the BMD were already very close to it. However, the things that they lacked were blowout panels and active protection system. However, this vehicle does actually have these, so it basically counters all of the problems which the previous vehicles actually had. So in conclusion, this is very good, and I definitely recommend you guys to get it before it's gone. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to all my channel members, and by the way, big shout out to Mielzer for actually helping me with this damage test.